For more on this, we're joined now by retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. He was a NATO commander when Russia invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So listen, for anybody watching this space or our network for that matter, going into eastern Ukraine for Russia really was sort of low-hanging fruit, right? That was the most likely option in terms of sending troops in if that's what Vladimir Putin ultimately would decide. I'm curious, given that, do you think it's surprising that it seems to have been hours and now we are still waiting for a definitive or a more aggressive response from the United States in terms of sanctions, as opposed to what we saw last night, really just sanctioning that region as a whole?
Well, thanks. You and Jim both have perfectly framed the situation and the description, and I wish more elected officials would talk about the fact that this is really a continuation of what started in 2014. This is not a new war or something. This is just the next phase. I believe that the Kremlin understands that we would be hesitant or uncertain when it comes to sanctions because they didn't launch 100,000 troops in a gigantic assault headed down the highway towards Kyiv. Instead, they have found this kind of a middle ground. Your phrase, low-hanging fruit, is not far off the mark, because the objective is to bring about the collapse of the Zelensky government, and they want to do that by choking the Ukrainian economy like a boa constrictor wrapped around the country. That's why I think going into the Donbass will help contribute to that squeezing of Ukraine's economy.
So if this is more a suffocation strategy as opposed to a blitzkrieg-like assault that U.S. Officials have been warning for some time, do you believe the response so far, the sanctions today, we should be hearing some more in the coming hours, as well as the movement of some NATO forces further to the east, not inside Ukraine, we should note, but in NATO allies in the east. Do you believe that mix of steps has been sufficient?
Not yet. Look, the White House and the Pentagon obviously have access to intelligence that I would not have, and I do believe that what they have reported or predicted was absolutely on one of a list of options for the Kremlin. The Russian General Staff has done a good job of providing options for Putin to use depending on how they saw our reaction and so on. But I just don't believe that the large assault like that is feasible, or that they would be willing to accept the casualties that they would incur against Ukrainian forces. Having said that, I wish that our first response last night coming out of the blocks had been something a little bit more robust than just putting sanctions on these characters from the two breakaway republics. I was heartened to see what I heard from Prime Minister Johnson today about banks being targeted. This is a little bit more substantial. I think that we need to continue to increase the delivery of things like Javelin, counterfire radar, and so on. This should look like the Berlin airlift.
Yeah, especially since we've been hearing for weeks now from this administration that their approach would be different following the invasion and annexation in 2014, that they've learned a lot of lessons since then, and they've done many counter tabletop exercises to plan for any scenario. And then here we are still waiting to hear for firmer sanctions out of the administration. What is your take about the continued Russian troop presence in Belarus and the fact that Russia announced following their joint exercises that they will be there indefinitely?
Yeah, this is all connected, of course, and I don't think anybody would be surprised to hear that the Russian troops were going to stay in Belarus a little bit longer than what everybody said the Russian and Belarusian officials said would be the end of the exercise. The fact that they're still there, not a surprise. I think this is the next step in the annexation, or what they refer to as the Union State, where Belarus joins Russia into one large Union State, with President Putin becoming the head of the Union State. Lukashenko, probably the illegitimate president of Belarus, goes into retirement this summer out to Sochi, I'm guessing. And now you've got, of course, nobody in Europe will shed a tear for Lukashenko. I mean, the guy's terrible. So there won't be a lot of pushback about this creation of the Union state, except that you're going to end up with thousands of Russian troops that are based in Belarus and our allies in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. This is not a good situation there, particularly around what we call the Suwalki corridor. So this is happening at the same time while we are all looking at Ukraine.
It does appear to be a situation where Vladimir Putin only seems to be more and more emboldened by the moment. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you as always.
Thanks for the privilege.